Okay, hello.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, and you're all missing. Let me move you over here. Oh. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our final webinar of this series. And today we will have Colm O'Rourke, as normal, coming in with the quality and regulatory lens. We have a big welcome to our new presenter, Kathryn, Head of Client Delivery here at Trinzo. And what she's bringing us through today, I think will be very useful for everybody here involved. And of course, I'm still here. You can't get rid of me. So if we think about the 4 sessions that we've done so far, titled obviously Trinzo's AI Without the Chaos series, we've gone from looking at AI through the lens of governance, finding where to start, at what workflow level with Jack, and then we looked at notified bodies with Scarlett to view compliant and responsible use of AI in QA, RA, and R&D. Today, we're going to give you a quick overview of the adoption gap and a maturity check before Kathryn's wonderful demo. And then afterwards, Colin will talk about applying what we have learned today in different areas. And if we have time at the end, I'll show you a little review I did of different models to see the difference between the models, but that's something that if we have time to look at. Okay, so remember for the adoption gap, this has been true forever in terms of technology. Everyone always sees the shiny new thing and thinks, oh, this technology is changing the world. But eventually, it always comes back to your people first, the process that you have in place, and then the tools of technology. So you see in a lot of organizations that people are coming with different skills and different understanding of what the new technology is or what it does. And you need to start with your people and change management. Then you have to look at your process, make sure that your process is solid, stable, correct, and what you want to is going to deliver the business outcomes that you want to deliver. We see here that some companies have no shared prompt libraries, no governance, and no ownership of the different tools, while other companies have too many shared prompts, too much governance, and unclear ownership across. So you got to get that balance right. But one thing that we see time and time again is effective AI delivering value for the organization, for the department, or for the team. There's a strong level of trust between people in the team, and they understand the work that people is doing with AI, and they understand what they're getting when they get an AI assisted output, so that they can trust in the quality of that output and they know what they have to do with it, rather than having to go back to square one and review, is this correct? Is this not correct? So that they can trust that the work, so that they don't have to duplicate work or go back over work again. Now, remember, we always say this crawl, walk, run. So a couple of different things that you can do in the crawl period are AI literacy. Make sure your team knows about AI, and particularly you want to get all the way down into what it means for their specific job or role, or for their colleagues' job and role, and how that affects them in their department or in their job or in their work. Make sure that the guardrails are in place, and have basic prompting skills, because this is basic prompting skills have survived the test of 3 years so far, and there's no indication that it won't survive beyond. So we'll be pretty confident that if you're strong in understanding what prompting is, it will be useful to you going forward. Then you move on to individual productivity, team workflows, and reusable prompts that you can use yourself or across your team and beyond. And then when you get up and running, you can start implementing agents across your workflows and scaling across your enterprise and scaling the capability that you have. Now, one thing that we keep coming back to is a lot of companies come to us and ask, where can we use AI in our complaints handling, for example? But we've got to be careful that that's not the question that we need to ask. Starting with AI leads to a whole load of pilots, and can lead to really sexy looking pilots, but rarely leads to actual business value. remember, AI is an amplifier of what you already have. So what we're looking to do here is we're going to try to amplify expert judgment, not to replace it with AI, accelerate experienced professionals, many of the other things that we have in there. Now, Kathryn will show you a little bit about how it can be used to mitigate risk. And then, of course, Colm will bring the lens of the regulated environment. But it's absolutely critical to start where your competence is already in place. Because if you just start amplifying without having your people trained, understanding your workflow, and understanding what you're going to get out of this, you just end up amplifying rubbish. And as Kira used to say, you create a whole load of AI slop, which rather than removing work from your organization, adds a whole load of unnecessary work to your organization. And with that, I'd like to pass over to our famous special guest, Kathryn, who's going to bring us through a live demo of AI for project management. Kathryn, over to you.
Thanks, Conor. Hi, everyone. And I've been on these webinars all the time, and you always talk about don't do a live demo. So I have some backup plans prepared if we need them. But just before we kind of get into that, to set the scene, I am a believer in technology and in AI. And I spent over 20 years working in Citibank in financial services, ultimately project management towards the end, and heading up global change management roles. And I guess because I grew up there and because we had our own technology teams and because I understood our systems, you inherit as a project manager, you inherently understood how the work got done, and you were very competent in that, and you understood the risks a little bit more. And then as I transitioned into Trinzo, where I am learning a brand new trade, understanding a new industry, new regulations, new processes. It's a little bit the program management pillars, and for the project managers that are on the line here, project management, Prince or PMP, whatever your discipline is going to be, those principles always remain the same. But it's trying to ask the right questions of your team, of your client, and what the ultimate objectives are. Is how I see AI has really helped accelerate the preparation and the setup of project management, and that's really how we apply it in Trinzo today. I'm going to share with you, it's definitely a Nackney Acres SOW that sales have sold for us, because it'll be a little bit prettier than what we get sometimes. But ultimately, in a day in the life in our team, I'll be working with our sales team who are scoping out some opportunities and some work with clients. And on a daily basis, I am always using either ChatGPT or Claude to help me anticipate what this project's going to look like. How can I ensure that my team is delivering good work for our client? And and very often in an early sales cycle process, you're not really getting into the depth. And it's when it moves over into client delivery and the work that we do, you're starting to open the boxes and trying to see, well, really, what is the job to be done and how are we going to get it done? And that's where the risk management, capacity planning really comes into it, and all the dependencies. So I will share screens, and I just want to kind of give you an overview of the SOW that we've come in, that's come into us. And I really, where are you gone? And what I want to do is to be able to tell GPT what I want them to do. What is the statement of work? What is the scope? Give them some context to the jobs to be done. And like, this is kind of quite intuitive of what it's asking it to do and the deliverables that we need to achieve. But very often we will sell deliverables, but our client delivery need to figure out, well, how are we going to achieve those deliverables? So that's some context. It's a very pretty, beautiful SOW that we don't usually see, but I want to load it in here and set some context to what we want the GPT to tell for us. So the first prompt I'm going to load into it is just telling them who I am, what my background is as a project manager, how much experience do I need to have, what is my core competency that I should be able to look out for. And you know, and I've tailored this just to be quite generic FDA, ISO standards, but you can zone in more on if you wanted to do an FDA submission, or if you want to do 510K, or this is quite a large remediation program, but there may be a requirement to do something a little bit more specific. It could just be a simple gap assessment on a QMS, and I need to, okay, what are the jobs to be done here? What is the right team I need to build in order to get this work done? So the scene is set. My agent knows what it's doing, why it's doing it. So the next stage I want to add into it is, okay, give me an idea of based on that statement of work, what is the tasks that need to be completed? Because if I jump into it straight away and say, okay, give me a project plan or work breakdown structure, I could have overshot the mark a little bit. I could be thinking, it's given me an opportunity to tailor it and customize it to the client needs and to the team that we have here in Trinzo. So it's working away on that. I need to, the client could have asked us to, but I don't need you to look after the risk management side of things. So I have my team here internally to do that. And I know my agent is setting the scene properly if it knows to include risk management, and I'll want to be able to exclude it from that. So these are just really an implied tasks that we should be seen to do in this broad scope of work. And I may need to iterate this a few times and refine it just to tailor it back to the time zone, the timeline that we have, and the actual scope of work. So it's taken a bit of time to scope that out, but it's starting to read it. And actually, this is a good point that I tend to use this for in pre-planning and post-planning is capacity planning. And previously in other roles, I used to work with project teams. You might be doing this large migration, and I'd say, how long will it take us to do that? And they would say, well, it'll take 100 man days plus or minus 40%. And in project management, you have that slippage. But when you're working in a consultancy defined scope of work, you don't have that time. You have to know that if we have 30 days to do that we can hit it on 30 days. So there's, for me, this is probably more project charter style work that it's doing. It's kind of writing the story about how we're going to do this gap assessment, what are the activities we're going to need to complete. And unless you're working on a large program of work, it's probably overkill, but it's really good education, context setting for me as a program manager, for how I'm going to manage our deliverables, manage our team, and also manage back up to the client on how we're doing. Are we still meeting your objectives and your deliverables? So like this is an education, and I would use this definitely at pre-kickoff to be able to orientate our team on what the scope is, what the objectives are. And when you're pulling in SMEs from other parts of the world and that might be doing pieces of work that are sequenced across the life cycle of this project, I'd kind of call this a discovery phase, going, okay, this is what we think we need to do based on what you know from the client, what the inputs are going to be. Do you think this is accurate? And so it's still it's too much, it's overkill, but it's just starting to tell that whole story. And but for like a remediation, as we all know, is a minimum of 12 months work, could be 2 to 3 years. So we're definitely doing the design phase properly, so that we're anticipating the curveballs that we're going to get along the life cycle of the project.
And Kathryn, for the estimation of the days, I know you asked me how long it'll take to do something. I say, oh, I'll get that done in an hour or two. you can then stick something into ChatGPT and say, well, it says 2 days, and then, oh, okay, yeah, maybe it
Yeah.
would be.
Yeah, and we all think we'll do
Yeah,
something faster than we do, but
yeah,
it's you can add variables into this. Well, the client, there's an upstream dependency that we're waiting on, and that's not going to be ready until X date. And you'll see when we get to the end of this kind of journey that the sequencing, the dependencies, and the actual project management is taken. It's how you're able to, the quality assurance of all of that is, for me, is heightened because I have someone looking out for me. I've got the GPT is trained up to look out for me and tell me the questions to ask, what to probe. So, like, listen, that, can you
it's going to take
imagine
forever.
back
Yeah, yeah.
20 years ago, or 10 years ago, 5 years ago, like when you have to start a remediation program like this, you have to set your governance structure up properly. You have to invest in the design phase to make sure that you know how you're going to get the work done, what the dependencies are. I may need to bring in a clinical specialist in to do a particular job, but it helps me by going through this logic and this order to know, okay, well, I don't need you until the end of September. And it helps with our capacity planning, our resource planning, and allows the project to ramp up and phase. And that we're able to talk to it with our client, go, well, I need an SME on your side in October, and we have substance to qualify that. And I think that can be very, very valuable when we're discussing with clients. Um, so the next thing, and so this is kind of context setting, and you have to, I really recommend kind of spending a bit of time doing this before you get to jumping right into the scheduling and going, okay, what am I dealing with? What are the jobs to be done? Who am I going to get to do it? So there's a scheduling prompt here that I've just refined a little bit. It's and it'll start to get you ready to build out the project plan, and that helps you visualize. So at kickoff phase with a client, I usually have this ready, and it's rolled up into kind of milestones, and it's just on a PowerPoint page. But I need to go through this process first in order to kind of zoom out and be able to have something presentable back to the client. So that's kind of running away there with the schedule, but and I would present that back as a kind of a word plan to a client, and to get them to agree to make sure that they understand their internal requirements that we need from them, and it typically what it does, it'll prompt any, if they've got any freezes that's happening internally, or if they've got any other implementation that's going on, or product launch, or an audit happening. Once they can see that we've thought through the process, so in such a detailed fashion, it'll it will prompt them to think about things internally, allow them to bring to their own internal steering committees about, okay, we've launched this project, here's something tangible to work with, to discuss, and then it allows them to figure out, okay, on a monthly basis, we're having our stakeholder meeting. I need you to give me a quadrant report to give me an update on these critical milestones and critical paths, because we'll never know what other broader company commercial dependencies are happening in an internal basis, and this just helps prompt and inform and show the client that we're thinking about them and their other areas as well.
So, Kathryn, you started off with a persona prompt. I saw that, and then your
Yeah,
second prompt was breaking the SOW into tasks. You
yeah.
said you do that a few. How many times would you do that? Like, because we know it's a non-deterministic output, so every time you do that, it'll be slightly different,
It'd be
and
slightly
not,
different.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And to be honest, with the tasks, you could, um, the first few times you're just doing it just to give you an idea of what's going to happen. For me, it's when and then I'll start to tell it the tasks I don't want to see,
Okay.
because they're not in scope, and so that we're bringing it down to the critical path, the critical items that we're actually responsible for. Some of the tasks you could bring into client discussions to say, by the way, we're not doing this, but we do have a downstream dependency on that, or that will become an issue for you in down the track, and it just helps. And it may always be in consideration by a client, but it helps inform our team. It helps assure the client that we're thinking about their wider implications as well.
Interesting you said that. On Friday, I was talking to a buddy of mine who's giving me the example of it. It's an engineering company. I don't want to give away too much in case there's anything sensitive about it. But they had a project to do, and they ran through this type of structure that you're going through at the moment. And they were able to say, we are not responsible for these parts, but have you thought about them? And there was a lot of things that they just handed back to the client as an extra piece of information. We're going to do our job, but
Yeah,
there are these things, and I hope you're asking questions of whoever's in charge of those. And the client went, oh my God, we hadn't even thought half of that stuff.
yeah,
But like, as you're saying, really good for uncovering stuff, particularly that you haven't thought of.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and even as we get to there's the schedule here, and like I just think, oh my God, where have you been all my life? Looking how much detail that's coming into that, because when we were when I was building out a project plan, you'd go into discovery phase for weeks and months,
yeah,
and then but your first milestone was to build a project plan, and that was months down the road, and all your variables are coming in. Whereas now, within hours, you can have a really substantial project plan that's about 80% accurate until you get it validated with the client. And when the curveballs come, because they will, then a replan, or like if I pull out a block, what is the impact of it? You have your agent that's specific for this DHF remediation to keep playing around with. And there are times when I go out of this agent and start a new one, just to be a devil's advocate for some of
yeah.
the findings that I'm having here. But like, this
Kathryn,
is,
can I just
yeah,
come in and say something there? I'm really glad you said hours there, and it's a point that I think that's important to make, not minutes. Like I do think a lot of people, they sit down and they think, right, I've got a big job to do, I have a report to write or whatever it is, and I'll just stick a quick prompt into ChatGPT and that'll do it. Like, what we're seeing here, I think it's fantastic to see this kind of progression. Like, it's not a quick, right? It's quick in comparison to what it would have been, but
yeah,
it's you have to actually invest the time in working through layers and layers of this. And yeah, it might take you several hours to get the output. That's enormously better than what it was. But
yeah,
I do think there is a bit of a misconception out there that that it's going to be quick, like within 30 minutes I'll have what I need. And I was certainly guilty of this. Initially I would get annoyed when I didn't get what I wanted straight
yeah,
away, and then I would just stop and go back to the old way or whatever it was.
yeah,
Or
yeah.
it wears you down and you just take the bad
Take
output
advantage. It'll
and
You'd
go
do.
with
never
there.
do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
We don't
and
do
that's
that at
it.
Trinzo, obviously, but
No.
yeah, but I think it's a good point. You have to invest the time, and it's worth it then.
Yeah. And Conor, you said at the outset, it's that little triangle: people, process, and trust. And there is a piece where, like, you need to know the process, and say the process of project management. You need to know the process of project management in order to be able to determine, okay, nice to have, don't need that. Oh, that's really interesting. That could be valuable. So what it's coming down to, it's and I say to my team a lot, it's we we need to use the tool to help us go back to project management and quality assurance of the project, to make sure that we're meeting the deliverables that the client has asked us to achieve for them. Because very often we can get distracted in managing the team, which is required, but it's supporting the team. And like, we're working with SMEs that have 20 plus years experience, and we need to enable them to use their experience and knowledge on the projects. And how can we get their knowledge right into the key objective of the project, rather than getting bogged down in the administration and the governance that is required, that we do need to show to the client, but they're getting more value to the project quicker. Um, And so then the people we need to be, so if I had, I suppose, started off my career as a project manager, like on day one, it's probably unlikely that you would, but you need to have, I call it the scars from bad projects and the stripes from good ones, to be able to kind of have that evaluation of what good looks like, what are the principles of project management, what good looks like, and then you just build into it the technical competency of the industry that you're working in. And I kind of put a prompt in there for risk management, and it's like and a lot of these are good to know, but we need to kind of rank them and go, what do we need to check with the client, and what is relevant for this project for me right now. And that could take on a remediation project, when you're working with a client, sometimes they don't have the time to invest in the workshop to tease out the project, to tease out the risks and the governance associated with good project management. That's might be what they've hired us for, but they very often don't have the time to do that because they're tactically working on their day-to-day job. So this helps us. Okay, we'll do this work for you, but you need to validate it, and that validation is a little bit faster for them, and gives us the, okay, we're satisfied, we're addressing the risks, and they're addressing the right risks, and we know the mitigants that we're putting in place to manage that as well. So that's on the risk side. I know I had another one on documentation, but I think given the time, like clearly you can tell your agent whatever kind of governance you need to produce, whatever communication strategy, whatever the minutes of your meetings, you can kind of prompt it to do all of that, and it just really accelerates and streamlines and standardizes, I would say, what we do. And what you can offer a client. Trinzo have a playbook, and the Trinzo way of working for all of the different stages of project management, and we've built agents that kind of help make sure that we're consistent and standard in how we complete that. And the final just prompt I've created, and it Conor, you'll hate it, but it's turned into a bit of a beast for me on the project planning side of things. So, and this is probably where, after you've done the chartering, after you've done all the context setting and the discovery with the client and internally with the SMEs, you want to be able to manage it on a day-to-day basis with a project plan, and all your work breakdown structures that you've now agreed that's in place, and the priority jobs to be done. You want to create your project plan to help govern and kind of manage the dates. And for us, that's still kind of manual. I'm using a prompt to create the template for me based on all of this work that we've done, but it is manual, and we'd all say it's a little bit fiddly to try and get that right and to get that workflow in place. And this is a prompt to give me a project plan, and I know it's going to take a bit of time to kind of generate that. So I'll show you the ChatGPT version that I've created. So it's created a nice little workbook, kind of telling you it's your dashboard, telling you how to govern it, and kind of the key. And for me, I just want to be able to cut this and send this to a client. That's their project status report, and this can be all interactive, and you can have different widgets on it to be able to communicate to the client. And so, Microsoft Project Manager does this, Smartsheets all does that now, and a lot of the agents are integratable with these systems. For us, it's not there yet, so we're kind of using some of it is integrated, but it allows it all to be together in one workbook, and that I know what I'm telling the client, and I know what I need to do internally. So I just wanted to kind of give you a quick demo of that, and then there's another version that Claude do. When we get to this stage, I suppose personally I do like Claude. I do like the dashboards that it's creating for me, and how it presents it back. But ultimately, it's the same thing. And this one, I found that where I need dates to be integrated and dynamic, it does work a little bit better. But that's for me the advancement in project management. where this might take us weeks and months to do, we've got it in a few hours. We can refine it, we can tweak it, and use up our tokens on it. So it's been a massive evolution in project management, and it's only getting faster. And ultimately, I think it should be, I think, for project managers to kind of stay in touch with this. It's important, because the risk is that maybe companies might think, in-house people or the SMEs, so we can automate project management within the team or within the function or within the project. It still needs that authority. It still needs that quality assurance, and this isn't automated at all yet, but it's really helping to add, I would say, an elevated professionalism to how we project manage. It's definitely helping managing our risks and interrogating the results. And in our role in client delivery, where we kind of have oversight of multiple projects, the investment that you make in the initial design helps you understand what is included in this project plan once you get to it at the end of the day, at the end of the monitoring through the end of the cycle, and then helps you communicate with the client and starts to help you anticipate their needs and help them and ourselves see around corners. And where we're not the SME on all projects, we're trying to, different clients are working with different inherent systems, different regulators. It just helps us tailor the program to all of those needs much quicker.
Kathryn, there's actually just a question in the chat from Amy. So she's asking, out of ChatGPT, Copilot and Claude, which do you prefer using, or which one do you use for different jobs in client delivery?
I probably used ChatGPT on the daily, just for quicker reaction to ideas, helping prompt me on what to think about and what to look at. I've seen, so I don't know if you feel this, I use Copilot for meetings, and I've developed prompts that Copilot's good enough for me for meetings and for internal stuff, and then what we produce to clients. Obviously GPT was great. Then Claude came, and I was like, oh my God, Claude's amazing. And it can produce PowerPoint, Excel, Word. It can use our branding, all that kind of thing. It's fantastic at. But I've seen the shift back to GPT now for just, it's much better structured than it was. I think it's tighter in terms of its content that it's given back to me. And I would say 3 months ago, if it was producing an Excel spreadsheet, it'd be gobbledygook. Whereas now it's just getting tighter and tighter all the time. But I would, on a day-to-day basis, I have GPT open there, and I'm just running ideas through it all the time. And it's more concise in what it's sending back to me. And I think even its prompts to tell me, would you like me to do the next step, is a lot more advanced and tuned into our way of thinking as well, or my way of thinking at the moment as well. But then for the professional distribution of material to clients, I'm probably going back to Claude for that still. We have hooked Claude up to Gamma, and it is very good. I think if I was a little bit more competent in kind of a little bit more creative and design orientated as well, I would probably get more out of it that way. But for me in my role at the moment, it's pretty good with just as it stands in PowerPoint, and it's taken all my branding. It can take images, kind of basic images, and format it. I have hooked it up to Asana just as a trial, and it's not perfect. It still needs a bit more work, and to be able to keep it updated continuously is the hard thing. And I think that's where it'll be a big step change for the workflow, is when my vision for it is when we launch a project, I think we have to go through that whole governance, and we launch a project and we're live, and I might have 5 people working on it, but they're all hooked up to this one project, and their meetings and their reports are all integrated in a dynamic way with our overall project plan and governance, and that it's that is the next level of automation. I don't know where we are with that yet, but the pace of it, it might be later this year or early next year, and the orchestration of all of those program teams is the holy grail for me. I can't wait to see what's going to happen with that. Sarah.
Well, I could see Sarah says here the 2060-20 works for me. I have to put in input. Claude does a lot of the heavy lifting. However, the final 20 has to be me. I have to understand. I'd agree with that. I'm not going to answer Alistair's question until the end, because we've a little thing in store. If we have time, we've a little thing in store just to show you how we check different things. But before we go any further, Colm, we saw, as we were seeing there, Kathryn put in a persona, decomposed the task, scheduled it all up, did risk mitigation, and then made different documents like a product plan and everything like that. You were thinking, how does this apply to other parts of life science if you're not necessarily a project manager?
Yeah, so I mean, I think just that in itself, though, is great learning, and we've talked about this, several times at many of our different webinars. And we already touched on it today, that you have to take your time and you have to understand a task. And the webinar we did 2 or 3 ones ago with Jack, where we looked at breaking down the whole process. I think that's incredibly important. So Kathryn is a project management expert. She knows what the end result should be. And I think that's a really important message for us. And these are examples on the screen here of different areas where AI tools are being implemented right now. Is any of the entire processes here being completely automated with AI? I would hope not, because I don't think it's there yet. Not in our industry, not in regulated life science. But if you take something like, I think your example, Kathryn, fits nicely to a certain degree with internal audit, right? Because there's a lot of planning when it comes to, and any quality people on the call here will know that, you need to plan your internal audit schedule for the year ahead. Now that might be simpler if you're an SME, or that could be incredibly complicated if you're a larger multinational, multi-site, all that kind of stuff. And the internal audit coordinator, they will know what they want to get out of that. And that's a really important thing, is you need to know what you said yourself, what good looks like, and then you are working gradually to get to that. So internal audit is a nice example of where you can plan an internal audit schedule. And then there are so many ancillary documents. Each audit has a plan, obviously, and report and everything that goes with that, and your communication to the auditees and the follow-up. So you can definitely visualize how tools work there. Another thing I think is important to reiterate, Conor, as a point you made, is we're AI is amplifying the process that already exists, right? And you've got rubbish in, rubbish out. We know that's for any process. So if you take something like change control, that's often not very well understood by some companies, and it can be that certain changes are really complex, and the impacts of changes. But if you don't have a well formatted change control process, and you don't understand your change control process, don't start sticking AI tools into it yet, because you're just going to create problems, particularly in something like, I would say, change control, because of the nuances that come with it, the regulatory interpretations that can be required, the multiple teams that are involved. So it's just going back to that message of knowing what your process is, and not just saying, let's put AI in here. It's what's working, what can we amplify with AI. So these are all examples where definitely it can be deployed, but it must be deployed in that sensible, stepwise way into a good process that's well understood. So it's not, you can't just jump off and go. There's a lot of prerequisites, I think, that are needed.
Very good, thanks. We have 5 quick lessons here, and I'm trying to rush to get to show you something, but I mightn't get much time on it. But the lessons start with the work, not with the technology. Standardize what works, keep humans accountable. Like Alistair's question, I'm going to get to a little bit later, but in some ways, that I know you're using as few words as possible there, but at no stage in what Kathryn showed us did Kathryn accept the word of the machine. So like I'm going to now break that a little bit later, just showing you for a different reason. I put the same prompts through a couple of different models just to show you the difference in styles. But there is no way that I would accept the answer of a machine in the work that I'm doing without checking it, without looking at it properly, and certainly not for a large piece of work. I'm actually writing a paper at the moment where the human fits in as a stage gate, and the human must add value for it to move to the next stage ahead, because these are non-deterministic machines. They're going to give you a different answer every time. Build trust before automation. So if you, like, one of the big problems we identified early in the series is the shadow AI. And if half the people in the company are using AI, but not officially, that's immediately impacting the trust of handing work from one to another. And you're going nowhere until you sort out that trust underlying. And then you scale what sticks. Don't scale from day one. Wait until it sticks. And not all AI scales. Now, quickly, you'll have these slides. I ran Kathryn's prompts through a couple of different models, just the highest level model for all of these, just at face value, without doing too much about it. And I suppose I'll tell you, across the three of them, they all came up with broadly the same stuff. And there were no hallucinations across any of them, because Kathryn's prompts are very tight. But you can see there was a difference in style, or the perspective the different model took. Now, again, through prompt engineering, you can get by this or come from the angle that you want to. And Kathryn has designed these prompts to fit with her templates and the Trinzo approach, which will mitigate that to some degree, but there'll still be an angle that any LLM comes from. And I got the models in to mark and rank each other. You can look at this for the details afterwards when I send around the slides. But really, it comes to exactly as Kathryn was describing in her work. If you can, at your work, use multiple models for different jobs, and particularly keep one model aside in order to check, play devil's advocate, challenge your work, challenge your thinking, challenge the work of another AI all the way through, in order to make sure that you know what you're getting to. And when I put them all up against each other, again, a lot of opinion in this and everything like that, but Claude was considered the best by all three models. And then obviously Gemini said it was better than ChatGPT, and ChatGPT said it was better than Gemini. But if you actually look at it, Claude was that little bit ahead. But that's when I did this. This morning, Kimi released its level 3. This is a Chinese model, and it's now number 3 on the charts for hitting the benchmarks of intelligence in AI. This changes weekly. So I wouldn't be too concerned about the cutting. I wouldn't be using AI in a regulated environment to perform cutting edge tasks if I didn't own the model myself. So it is important that they're getting better, but nothing replaces strong prompting, discipline, good workflow, checking your work off mail, just the basics that we all grew up and learned as we were learning how to do our jobs. I think we are. I've got
Bang
10
on time.
seconds left.
Good stuff.
Big thanks to Colm as usual, and a special thanks to Kathryn for her maiden presentation today. Hopefully we'll be bringing her back again, and she won't be cursing us as much for putting her through this next time. Again, I'll send out all this afterwards. If you have any questions, send messages in to Trinzo. They'll get to me eventually. I'm terrible at responding to messages, but I generally get there at the end. And thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone.
We pop in on the other channel?